We're 37 attorneys, I think, and 20 are partners. Yeah, we have about three, so probably 15, 14 or
Like
15 associates,
like 20 or 30 total.
37 total.
Absolutely blows my mind that you're a solo marketer for that many attorneys. I mean, the ratio is crazy when you think
There's
about it.
just
Sharp strategies, sweet success.
So my name is Ashley Steinberger. I'm a marketing and business development manager at Cuddy and Fader LLP. We're a regional full service real estate firm in White Plains, New York, which is about 30 minutes outside of New York City. I've been here for about 8.5 years. I'm a solo marketer. So any solo marketers out there, I'm happy to connect because I feel you. So I guess we're considered a small firm based on the area that we're in. We're a regional law firm, full service real estate firm. You primarily work with like plaintiff firms, right?
Yeah, personal injury attorneys mostly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, we didn't have any kind of structure or an official marketing department 8 years ago when I joined. So, thankfully, the managing partner at the time really saw the value of bringing someone in-house. They went through kind of like a rebrand back in 2016. He knew he really wanted to elevate kind of the firm and really kind of make us look more innovative. It was like internally, we were always kind of cutting edge and doing these things to make sure we had like the top technology and really wanted to kind of set ourselves apart from our competitors. And I think visually it just didn't match what we were doing internally. So everything kind of still looked dated on the outside with just the logo and the website. So he made some great, updates to rebranding the firm. And then they realized they really needed just some help internally to kind of move all of that forward and get all of the attorneys on the same page and why that's, kind of the personal marketing, the BD plans, the brand building for individuals and why that's so important. So yeah, I mean, I started there. It was kind of, coming in when I came in with a marketing director who came from Big Law. And, I think that was a little bit over their heads when she initially joined with me, where she only stayed for, I guess, 6 months. And then it was kind of like just a little bit of a disconnect between where the attorneys were and kind of what she was trying to achieve. So I decided to stay. The managing partner was really encouraging to me, like, this is, you're kind of growing with the firm. I came from a boutique law firm before I got here. So I was kind of in that smaller law firm mindset and I was still learning a lot. That's kind of why I joined here with a marketing director because I was ready to kind of learn the ropes from someone else. And then I just ended up being self-taught. I leaned into the Legal Marketing Association, met a lot of kind of peers in the field, and just really learned the ropes on my own of what works, what doesn't. Doing trainings, just reading a lot about kind of like the psychology of people and lawyers, and just how marketing works because it's really it's unique for attorneys and for law firms, but I feel like, it's ultimately comes down to like providing value, making sure that you're memorable and, that people can find you, and kind of know what you do. So I think from a personal branding perspective, we really did a lot with the partners initially to kind of get them more on board about their personal brand and kind of helping them with kind of carving out what that is specifically, asking those questions to themselves about, what their elevator pitch would be, what your ideal client would look like. So if that, client is looking for you, how can they find you? And then kind of tailoring everything around that. So are you writing articles about these things that, that's what your ideal client would be looking for? Are you thinking about the pain points of these clients and kind of just putting yourself in their shoes as opposed to just trying to promote yourself. So I think it was always just about how are we providing value to these potential contacts, whether it's referral sources or clients. So we know that they know that we're looking at what their pain points are, what they need from us. We know their industry. We know how we can help them. And so, yeah, I mean, it's part of our onboarding when we bring in new attorneys to make sure that they have a LinkedIn profile, that they meet with me to talk about like making sure their photo is updated, making sure their headline is really saying what they do and, talks about their, quote unquote area of expertise. I know we can't really say expertise, at least here in New York, but, just talking about specifically their practice area, what their specialty is, what their experience is in. So it really, and how helpful that is, to have things that are active about their thought leadership, their, articles, speaking engagements, attending networking events, joining groups on LinkedIn, that there's, LinkedIn itself can be such a valuable resource and a great place to start, when you're starting to learn how to network and kind of build your personal brand. So I really pitch it to them like that, especially the associates where they can feel so overwhelmed initially that they have so much on their plate about focusing on billing hours and learning the ropes of the firm, and then just learning how to slowly kind of get their name out there a little bit. And it takes time. I tell them too that this isn't going to happen overnight. Obviously, you're in it for the long game, that this takes several years to build, and you're kind of nurturing these relationships and referral sources. So I guess that's kind of it in a nutshell, but
I mean, I have so many questions. I guess the first one though is like, how do you have those associates, like how do you hold them accountable to the marketing plan? Like how does that look like?
that's a good question. I think that's something we run into. I'm a solo marketer, so I get stretched pretty thin, and I feel like I try to take on a lot of the responsibility because I'm cognizant of how busy everybody is and their billing time, and obviously the clients are priority. But I notice it more. We've had a shift recently when we have like groups working on like practice group business development plans. So we really try to align what the individual attorney's BD plan kind of looks like and what their marketing goals are, and kind of roll that into the practice group plan. So we're not just kind of doing these one-off things that don't make sense and are not kind of cohesive with the group plans and the firm-wide goals. But I notice if I don't move things forward with some of those, group meetings and, helping people like source speaking opportunities, which I'm happy to do, and that's part of my job. But I think I've started to delegate more to the attorneys, the associates in particular that are part of these groups, to say like, this is such good practice for you to kind of learn how to do this, kind of keep yourself on a schedule, have action items that you have to do before we meet again as a group, because it was just kind of all falling on me. And then I would have to come back and be like, well, I found this information and these opportunities and these things we can do. But it's like, it comes to a point where that's what they do day in and day out. This is their area of expertise. They know what types of events they're looking for. They know what types of, the targets they're looking for. So it just takes me that much longer to kind of do that research and do those things. And I feel like when I hand off some of that to the associates to say, listen, this is like a great thing for you to research and kind of look into these conferences or look into market research to look at industry trends or whatever it is, and kind of give them these deadlines to kind of bring that back to me, whether it's on an individual level or practice group level. And I feel like that's been more successful. I feel like sometimes on the individual level with some of the associates that I meet with, I think it's easy for them to just push it off to say, yes, I should have a tangible BD plan that we're working off of, and I should go on LinkedIn and I should have a list of contacts that I want to nurture these relationships, this year. And then we meet in a month and nothing's happened, And I actually had a meeting this morning where an attorney brought up that he had a potential referral that came through a bar association, and he forwarded it along to somebody else in his group because he's like, I think we can help this person out. This could be a potential new client for us. And he said he's like, I sent the email and then no one got back to me. So I did my part kind of thing. And I was like, this was in January, And so again, I offered myself to say, listen, copy me on those emails so I can make sure to close the loop to make sure that this is taken care of, that someone responded, whether we are able to provide the service or not, that we can provide an answer to them, because you're kind of burning that bridge of, they're not going to want to refer anyone to you know, if they don't ever hear back. So I think, yeah, I think it's definitely building this muscle and kind of learning this new behavior of how to kind of be more proactive with their marketing. Because I think they're so used to like the urgency of client needs and having that reactive approach that it's like a different way of being for them that they don't really fully understand yet. And I think from a marketing perspective, it's like we want to be proactive. We want to have these plans and talk about strategy and what your goals are for the year. And I think it's difficult for them in some respect to look at it that way. Like I think they do those things for their clients, but I think when it comes to their own personal planning and doing their goals, it's very difficult.
And it must be some kind of mental block because there are things like I just don't want to think about or think about too much. And I think for attorneys, not wanting to think about sales and follow up and customer service, like that's, you know, maybe not a part of their mindset. And so, like, they send an email to the intake team, and that's, you know, hopefully the end of it. So it sounds like you make basically like individualized marketing plans for each associate that fits into this larger whole marketing plan for the law firm. And you mentioned like each attorney like sets their own ideal client. So like does one attorney say like, hey, well, and I'm talking from personal injury. I don't know exactly what real estate attorneys do. But you know, does one of the associates say, hey, I want to focus mostly on dog bites and, you know, families whose kids suffer from dog bites, that's my niche. Is that what you're talking about? Is it similar or is it more specific, more broad?
Yeah, it is. And it varies from practice group to practice group. So we're considered like a full service real estate firm because we do, you know, we have a real estate transactional group that does like the financing and kind of lending deals for big, you know, commercial real estate projects, developers, things like that. We have the like regulatory administrative side that does land use and zoning and, you know, digital infrastructure and kind of getting all the land use approvals for those projects, those big developments, and putting towers up for telecommunications. And we have like a energy environmental sustainability group that kind of works with all of the issues that are presented with like every municipality has like different laws and rules with how, you know, what they'll allow to be built. And so we have that group and then we have a litigation group. And our litigation group is kind of unique because it is like a commercial business litigation group, but they do other things too. Like every litigator in that group has like an area of expertise. Like we have one associate that he's been writing a lot of thought leadership on AI, and he does some like employment law and landlord tenant. And so it's kind of like when we try to market that group, you know, and I think from a litigation standpoint, it's a different beast, right? Because no one really wants to litigate. So it's like you have to kind of market them in a different way. Like if you need this, we have this available to you. But I think, you know, we try to focus on like our decisions and wins and kind of promote those things. But from an individual standpoint, I think I ask those questions because it's like, I don't know. I don't know specifically what everyone does here on a day-to-day basis. Like what do your cases look like? What do you know, part of it is what do you enjoy doing, you know, and if you want to try to keep doing more of that, let's promote that part of you and let's get you talking about, you know, that area of law where you're, you know, writing content about it, you're speaking in that area, because we want to make sure that people can find you, that that's what you know, in that area. And the other aspect is, you know, it might not be what they love to do, but they're doing a lot of it. So, you know, they have a lot of knowledge, you know, they're becoming that kind of go-to person for that particular area of law. And I should mention too, we have a trust and estates and elder law practice as well. And that's also very unique with how we market that group because, you know, we have obviously great referral sources from, you know, architects or engineering firms when it comes to a development project. But when it's something like someone needs, you know, a complex will or estate planning, you know, those people are going to Google us. We have a cannabis practice. I think a big percentage of our business comes from them finding us online. And I think we've done a really good job with just making sure that we come up as a top search result for those people that are looking for, you know, help with licensing or whatever it is in the cannabis space. And So yeah, it's really unique and different. I think like just kind of learning still over several years. And our cannabis practice is fairly new. It's a few years old. But just trying to kind of learn how we can really, again, not to pigeonhole someone, but kind of figure out like what specifically do you want to be doing? And again, just going back to litigation, that's the area where it's kind of like they can kind of carve that out a little bit more. The other areas, it's kind of like we can do a lot of the things in the bucket for like, the cannabis group. They can do a lot with just, if someone's looking to open a dispensary or a cultivator or processor company or whatever it is in that space that we can assist with, all of the approvals. We can help with the lending, financing aspect, the transactional work. If they need litigation, we have that option too. If they need estate planning for for all of their, their cannabis business. So, but yeah, I think for litigation, I'm learning about again because they're getting just more engaged with marketing and BD finally. That I'm learning more specifically about what each individual does, and it is so different, and what their passions are, kind of where they want to be focusing their practice, and how we can kind of target opportunities for them.
So you mentioned LinkedIn. Do you incorporate like their other personal profiles in this marketing plan, like Facebook or Instagram, or is it mostly LinkedIn where you're focusing?
It's mostly LinkedIn. I feel like they're especially like I don't know that much about personal injury, but I know that like just from what I see, like as a consumer, the marketing is a bit different. I think from a firm perspective, we definitely have a presence on LinkedIn. We recently started an Instagram account. We are a little bit active on Facebook, and that's something that's kind of more unique to like the trust and estates department, where Facebook could be a really good platform for, getting your name out there, getting into certain groups and kind of just promoting yourself there, because that's kind of where you probably are going to find clients. You're not, I mean, yes, you could get referrals from assisted living or other places where people are looking for estate planning. But I think those are kind of resources that we would use for certain practice groups and maybe not others. And individually, like we used to have some attorneys that were very active on Twitter that kind of had this persona, and they were very active in the community. So it was kind of worthwhile for them to have this individual Twitter account. Obviously, that was kind of promoting themselves, their brand. He was a former managing partner, was more active on Twitter years ago when he was really building his practice. But not so much anymore. I've honestly noticed that a lot of our attorneys they don't have social media at all other than LinkedIn, which, is still something that I'm trying to show how valuable it can be to those few that don't use it as much as they could. But all other social media, they're just totally like, I don't want anything to do with that. Even the younger ones. So I think it's really a battle too, and it kind of goes into this whole thing with AI and how that's kind of just infiltrated everything. More so every day, I feel like everything is integrated with it. I don't know. I forget what site I was on. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I was searching something on like an Amazon order. And I was like, we don't see any of these keywords in this search. And I'm like, wow, it's just and it said it was from AI. So again, I'm just learning the ropes about, all of the possibilities with it. I think it's very intimidating to them. So I know this is going to be another uphill battle. Okay, you need to start embracing this. Like I've even mentioned the AI note takers during meetings. Like we could just do it for internal meetings, but how valuable that is to just, have the kind of notes from the meeting and the minutes. And they're just, yeah, it's a hard sell right now.
That is so wild to me. And AI is one of those things where there's a lot of like tools like the note taker, which is just like, oh my gosh, it's so simple, it's so easy, let's just use this. And like it's amazing to me to hear like that attorneys are just like, no, I'm skeptical of it. But I guess a lot of people are. A lot of people are skeptical of it. I get served ads on Instagram and Facebook for AI to replace lawyers, and I play the video, and maybe my video editor can splice it into the episode.
Then, if you've been in a car accident, don't call a lawyer. I didn't. I used this free AI app instead, and I ended up getting over $140,000. I know that sounds crazy, but stay with me. My car was totaled. My leg was messed up. I couldn't work. And the insurance offer? Trash.
But there's this video of a woman who was like, I was in a car accident. It was terrible, but the insurance company wasn't going to give me any money. And she was clearly AI. Like her lips weren't syncing with her words. She just looked weird. Like it was endearingly bad, honestly. And, the ad claimed that it was an AI tool that would replace lawyers. Well, I went to the landing page and filled out the form, and I was called by real lawyers and real law firm. The only AI part of it was like the video.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I showed that to a few attorneys, and initially, like they kind of bristled at it. They're like, "Hey, I was replacing an attorney." I'm like, "No, you're missing the point. This is a really stupid ass." Like,
Right.
but
Clickbait.
exactly, it's just clickbait. This is AI.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think there's it's been hyped so much. I think there's this kind of fear where people feel like it can do things that it can't. And so like that's where I get the most pushback is like, oh, like, we don't want to do that. I don't know. But I think people are just overestimating what AI can do and what it's capable of. And it's hard to figure out where the bullshit is, basically. I also wanted to ask about YouTube. Do you guys like individualize YouTube where attorneys have their own profiles and they're posting content? Or do you bring like all the videos under one firm channel? Or do you handle YouTube at all?
Yeah, we actually use Vimeo. And, when I created a Vimeo account, I feel like I was trying to set up something years ago through YouTube. And there was something that YouTube couldn't do that Vimeo could. And so I can't remember what it was. I was talking to someone else about this the other day. I'm like, I don't know why we have a Vimeo account. So I'm going to look back and see why that is. But that's kind of where we upload, all of our videos. That's another thing too, where, yeah, there is not, we don't have individual accounts for attorneys to kind of post content. And, I think it also gets down to the being stretched so thin and with limited budget and resources that, we tried to do some video series that we pushed out through social media that we kind of stored on Vimeo. And they were successful. Like they were great to kind of have this social media campaign that we did just around I don't know, I think it was like the development of a deal and kind of how things kind of work through across practice groups, just to kind of give people a better understanding, like from start to finish, of how it kind of touches every practice group and how we can kind of help with those that were kind of like the one-stop shop for those projects. It was something that we did all in-house. I bought the equipment. I was kind of filming. I was able to hire an editor. Was I? I think I was. Yes. But everything was really done in-house, and we're kind of experiencing that again, where one of the partners had this idea that he wanted to start a podcast for the firm and do something that was not us selling the firm. It was, hopefully obviously we're promoting ourselves by having the podcast, but we wanted it to be about community leaders, about people that we have relationships with and provide a platform for them. And we look at it as we want to look at that as a touch point, to have them on the podcast, to have this conversation, to give them this platform to talk about themselves, their business. And we just look at it as a great marketing BD strategy to say we want to nurture these relationships. We want to give them, access to our audience. And so great idea. Loved it. Love the partner who wants to be the host. And so for the past, I'm sure, as developing a podcast is, if you're not familiar with it, it's been a lot of work of just kind of researching the right equipment. Again, we're doing this with really limited budget. So just from the logo, the branding, the guests, the testing out the sound, how we're doing these in person, are we doing video, just audio? So all of the different dynamics that go into this. And, we have one podcast episode that's done and recorded. And, we've been trying to kind of do some more. We actually have a meeting later today to kind of regroup and keep the momentum going. But it's hard. It's difficult with limited resources. It's difficult to just being a department of one. We don't have a marketing committee. So it's, I look at it like being here for 8.5 years, and I feel like we've made significant strides with like internal processes for funding requests and how we plan events and making sure that we're following up and looking at the ROI and different things. Like we've definitely made a lot of improvements. We've got a lot more buy-in from the attorneys as a whole about the value of marketing BD, but the resources I feel like are just always stretched so thin. And yeah, it's unfortunate because it just feels like we're 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's so rare to meet a business owner who's enthusiastic about growing the marketing budget, because so few of them realize, like, when you grow the marketing budget, marketing is able to do more and the marketing gets better. And that's a lesson lost on far too many people. How big is your law firm in terms of how many associates you guys have?
Yeah, so we're 36 to 37 attorneys, I think, and 20 are partners. Yeah, we have about 3, so probably 14 or
Well,
15 associates,
like 20 or 30 total?
37 total.
Absolutely blows my mind that you're a solo marketer for that many attorneys. I mean, the ratio is crazy when you think
There's
about it.
just only so much you can do. It's like and I think that it makes me feel a little bit crazy sometimes. Like I'm not doing enough because I feel like there's so many projects that are kind of just like started, and then, and they're all with the attorneys, and it's not to their fault. I know how busy they are, but it's like I'm just one person, and there's also just that kind of balance of trying to figure out, like, I have to do the admin stuff, I have to do the event planning, I have to kind of do all that nitty gritty, making sure that things are processed and tracked, and then the high level strategy of, like, the stuff that is actually time consuming and valuable is like, I hate that I kind of push that aside some days, but I'm like, why did most of my day just get taken up with processing check requests and making sure seats are filled at these events that we're sponsoring? And, so I think that's the frustrating part. And I think it comes down to too, where I feel like the expectation, especially with the attorneys that don't work with me as much, are kind of like, what does she do? Does she just like make sure we're sitting at this table?
There are
It's like they
37
just
of
don't
them
know.
and wondering what you do. And
Right.
that's hilarious. That is absolutely, I'm sorry, I'm crying a little bit. That is so funny. Um, God bless. Well, I appreciate you coming on and going over this. I mean, it's honestly, like, I am super impressed, like, with what I've heard from you and the work that you're doing, and I feel like you deserve a support team at this point. Like, need to, like, send a package to your lead attorney, like a gift box. Like, will you just please, like, one person? I really appreciate you being on the podcast today and coming on. I mean, honestly, I feel like this is a great podcast. I loved hearing all the stuff that you're doing, because in the PI side, like PI law firms are doing LinkedIn because we're trying to get referrals. PI law firms are doing podcasts. That's in vogue right now.
Yep.
So we're doing a lot of the same stuff, but PI firms, like, I don't feel like are doing like the kind of individualized branding plans that you're doing for all of these firms. Honestly, it's kind of incredible to me. I really, and I mentioned it on LinkedIn, and somebody was like, can we hear more from her? And I'm like, yeah, we'll get her on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been great talking to you. And yeah, it's great just hearing about, what others do in this field too.
Where do you want people to look you up to learn more about you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on there frequently. So, you can just search for my name, Ashley Steinberger, and drop me a note.
All right, and if you guys are listening and you're having trouble finding her, send me a DM and I'll send you the link to her profile. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was, like I said, great episode. Loved having you. Check out Ashley and her LinkedIn and her firm's LinkedIn and just see what they're doing. Thank you so much, though.
Thank you.